All right. Hey, it's Andrew Hunzicker, CPA with Dope CFO. Back on our podcast today. This is going to be a really good one. I'm super excited. We have Desarie Anderson on. She has a pretty incredible background. And so she's a CPA as well as an enrolled agent, both a double whammy. I don't think I could have survived both of those myself. And so I'm actually gonna let you, why don't you tell us, as opposed to me trying to tell your background, you tell us all about you got a really quite a big background.
Okay, so I am, like you said, Desarie Anderson, and I am a CPA licensed in the state of Georgia. I'm also an enrolled agent, and the reason why I wound up with both of those is because I had decided at some point that I wasn't going to sit for the CPA exam because everyone kept on saying how hard it was. I was like, oh, I don't know. So when I graduated from college, I said, well, let me just go straight in because I'm already, I've been studying for the past 4 years. I might as well just keep it going. So studied for the EA exam. And then I decided, you know what? I mean, how hard can it really be? So I decided to jump in and take the CPA exam. And, that's why I wound up with both of them. And also, I'm a former auditor for the state of Georgia. I used to audit small to medium-sized businesses, income audits. Also, I worked as a financial auditor for a CPA firm here in Georgia. And that was a nonprofit. CPA firm. In addition to all of that, I also, before I became a CPA, I was a hairstylist. And people always say, wow, how do you jump from being a hairstylist to being an accountant? That is like two different sides of the brain, left side, right side. But anyway, I was a hairstylist for about 20 years. And I was a salon owner as well. And then I decided at one point that, you know what, I love doing hair, but I don't want to find myself at 50 behind the chair because I had to be. Let it be a choice. Then I decided to go back to school and get my license. And my father was actually a chartered accountant, which is similar to being a CPA in America, but he was living in London. And so I decided to go that route. And then I guess that's pretty much it. Nothing else.
Well, and that's what's amazing about that. So especially as it ties into our program, we have different people that do different things. Like I'm a CFO and I don't do bookkeeping or tax returns or tax planning. And then we have some people like you that can do everything from literally bookkeeping on through controller, CFO, tax planning, tax return, start to finish, one-stop shop. But then having that auditor background is super strong. I look at that as some of my best education ever. And then even working at the state, just kind of knowing how states work, because this is such a regulated industry. You're dealing with the state, whether it's just their excise tax or whatever. You're helping your dispensary client or whoever, they're going to need to deal with the state as well.
Exactly.
And so that's awesome background. So that leads us right into what are some unique skills or traits do you bring or kind of unique offering around your firm, and how does your practice, where are you wanting to do it all, or are you wanting to be a one-stop shop?
Jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Yeah.
So I always think it's best to sort of, find your area of expertise, something that you really enjoy doing, and sort of revolve your practice around that. That being said, right now I do pretty much everything. I haven't really decided where I want to focus in on, other than the fact that I want to focus in on the cannabis industry. Outside of that, I haven't really decided to narrow it down to a specific area. Now, eventually, I think as time goes on, when the excitement, I shouldn't say when the excitement wears off, I'm going to say anyway, when the excitement wears off and you decide, you know what, I don't feel like doing that. Then you start to realize, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do. Now, in terms of what I offer, one of the things that I bring to the industry, I would say, is my experience, of course, dealing with the IRS on different levels. I've dealt with collections, which is huge. People that don't pay their taxes, you know how big that is. And that has its own set of rules and regs. So even just being a tax accountant or being a tax preparer does not prepare you for helping clients with collections. It's totally different. There's a
Yeah.
totally different internal revenue manual that you need to understand and read it and know exactly what's going on. So I do bring that to the, to my practice. In addition to that, as a former auditor, even though I was an auditor for the state, I also dealt with IRS type issues because Georgia follows the IRS. They follow the feds. You have some states that are very specific to what they do when it comes to collections and even auditing. But Georgia tends to just follow the IRS with most things. So I did deal with a lot of IRS issues, even though I was dealing with a lot of state auditing. So when I decided to start my own business, I kept that going, but I was on the other side. So now I know, okay, so based on my experience dealing with the state, here is how we would have handled it at the state. So here's how we're going to handle it, as I help you along. So that was very, very helpful. Now, in terms of uniqueness, in terms of what do I bring that's special, I always find it very hard to answer that question because we're all, you have thousands of people doing the exact same thing, right? So how do you really differentiate yourself? Well, sometimes there are ways of doing that. But for the most part, what I find is it's a matter of a connection. Like, do you connect with the client? Because a client can speak to 5 of us that do the exact same thing. And what's really unique is our individuality. Like, do they connect with us? Okay. And that's how clients tend to choose who they want to work with outside of a price shopper, because you have some that are just price shopping. Okay, they're either price shopping or they're looking at location. Are you located in my town? Or they're looking at, do you work in my state? Things like that could be a condition. But other than that, it's really about whether or not you guys connect and are you on the same page. Let's see, now what else do I bring? I would say I do CFO work as well, amongst everything else. So, and in my CFO work, I like to build forecasts for clients. In addition to that, analyzing their numbers, and also they can make better decisions. So everything you do as a CFO is to help your clients make better financial decisions. But of course, before that's done, their books have to be together.
Yes, perfect. And that's in our program as well, about, I call it the value chain. And step 1 is rock solid accounting, whether they know they need that or not, because it's the foundation of everything else, whether it's improved cash flow, better tax returns, peace of mind, better reporting. And so, I mean, you just listed a ton of stuff. Like, if you were just going to focus on IRS and tax resolution, my hunch is it's going to be like, you could build the most massive cannabis CBD tax resolution firm. Or if you wanted to focus on CFO and valuation, and because valuation is another I see on your notes too, that you've done, I think, and even going back from day one, there's already tons of M&A activity, and everyone's like, well, what's a dispensary worth, or what's a farm worth? And we don't have comparables yet too much, and metrics to do valuations. So I think it's going to be another space where people are going to be paying 10 to 20 grand to get their farm valued or their dispensary valued. And so that's another growth area. And yeah, just, it's all those things you say are things these cannabis and CBD clients are going to need in a big, big way. And so it's awesome to see you getting in on the ground floor. And what I think they're going to appreciate with you too, with your background, they're going to be able to bounce ideas off you, whether it's a bookkeeping or journal entry or a valuation issue or a CFO issue or a tax resolution. You're going to be kind of a one-stop shop, which I think is going to be very, very valuable to them as well. And so that's super awesome. Let me go on the next question. Okay. Based on your background with IRS, what advice do you give other accountants? Because it's an important thing. We've seen many companies go on the bad side of the IRS.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And it's not hard to do either. It's very easy to do if you ignore them, because at the end of the day, if you're on their bad side, if you're not doing things properly, you're not complying, you're going to wind up on their bad side, of course, and they can do all sorts of things to shut you down, intentionally or unintentionally. I would say that for the accountants who work with clients, I would tell them to know what they know and know what they don't know. Okay. And if you don't know something, I think it's important that you try to research and find out. Or if you're working with a client that is dealing with a situation that you're totally not familiar with, rather than trying to say, okay, let me go in and try to figure out how to do this, you might want to just pass it on to somebody who has the expertise. That's very important, because I've seen where people, clients get into trouble because they're working with a person who is not really very well skilled in that area. And clients will throw you under the bus. They will throw you under the bus. Okay. And then they'll ride it back and forth while you're under there. Even if they told you, even if you tell them, see, a lot of times I see accountants saying, well, I know this is the right thing to do, but my client says that he or she would rather I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and get a signed document stating that you told me to do it.
Yeah.
And therefore I'm going to do it. That is just an absolute no-no. That's the dereliction of your duty, because at the end of the day, you know what's right and you know what's wrong. Okay. If you know it's wrong, don't do it, because even if that signed document means absolutely nothing, take it to court. They'll look at you and look at it and throw it out and keep you in.
Yeah. I totally agree on that point. Just do the right thing. And that's our best insurance policy, not a piece of paper.
Exactly. Do the right thing, because the client will say, I didn't say that, or I don't remember saying that, or they will tell you what you should have known, which, well, you're the professional, you should have told me not to do it. So they'll throw you under the bus. So don't, just do what's right. The second thing I would say is to make sure that your clients have and follow policies and procedures. Okay. It's important that you create, not necessarily you, but it's important that you have your clients understand the importance of maintaining, policies and procedures when they're doing things, because ultimately when I used to audit companies, and let's say there is something that they did that was somewhat outside of the realm, it could be something as simple as reimbursing themselves, for auto expenses, reimbursing yourselves for meals, reimbursing workers for different things that they purchase. The first thing I ask for is, okay, can I see your policies and your procedures that supports what you just did? And that's really important for nonprofits. They have to maintain policies and procedures. So outside of nonprofits, also for regular businesses, and with the cannabis industry, that is, the IRS, they're just waiting to catch us do something wrong, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you have policies and procedures, so that if there is something that you do that may be a little bit outside the realm of what's normal, sometimes a simple policy statement saying that, okay, here's how we're going to handle these particular situations will get you off the hook, right? So it's important that you talk to your clients about that. Even if you can't provide them with it, find someone that can, or advise them.
And you, just to stop you there for a moment, we saw this in our community yesterday with someone talk about who obviously wasn't that familiar with Form 8300, but knew it needed to be filed. And so sometimes you could be an accountant, like I'm not an expert in dealing with the IRS and Form 8300, but I might find someone like you in our community. Hey, I've got a client 8300 issue. Desarie, we want to hire you, bring you in to help make sure we do the right thing with this client, instead of just trying to guess of what I need to do and not really know. That's not my expertise.
Exactly. Excuse me. Another area to be really careful about is, of course, the dreaded 280E. I know everybody knows about that. It's like you can fall asleep and you can just see it in your dream. 280E. Okay, understand 280E. Not only that, 263A and 471, you want to understand those codes, because a lot of the audits tend to surround themselves around those particular, those codes. So especially if you're a new accountant looking to become an expert in this niche, you want to make sure that you understand the codes that the codes that this industry relies on. Okay. And if you don't understand it, once again, don't be afraid to outsource. Don't be afraid to outsource things you don't understand to a fellow accountant. For example, with Dope CFO, if you join Dope CFO, wonderful group. If you join Dope CFO, there are tons and tons of accountants inside that group that can help you. Okay, so you're never alone. So if your focus is more on bookkeeping, just sort of getting the information into the system, okay, and you don't really understand how to book a particular transaction because maybe it's GAAP and you don't understand GAAP, I would say consult with another accountant who is familiar with that can help you, because these are the little things that can get you in trouble with the IRS, because you may have an assumption that, okay, I heard that you are able to deduct certain 471 items, okay? But then there's a caveat to that. Well, are you maintaining your books according to GAAP so you can deduct those 471 items? Well, if you don't know it to that extent, you might just think, oh, okay, well, I can deduct A, B, C, D, E. But in the meantime, you're not keeping the books the way you're supposed to in order to be able to deduct that. Okay, so they're the little nuances that you have to understand
to get it right.
And then also setting up a system for your clients to pay their quarterly taxes. I mean, this seems really simple. I can't stress how important it is, because honestly, when in the process of doing collections within my business, I would have to say that 80% of the problems that most clients have stem from not paying estimated taxes. Because you figure, okay, I'm just working. Either you're not thinking about it, you don't realize you're supposed to do it, or you feel like, okay, rather than me taking this money and giving it to the IRS, let me reinvest it back in my business. And in the hopes that when it's time for me to pay my taxes at the end of the year, that I have enough to pay it. And most times people don't. So it always starts from not paying estimated taxes, and then it just snowballs from year to year.
We had that exact situation in dispensary, and all of a sudden it was like 300 grand they owed, and it was a big nightmare. And you got to have them budget, pay it quarterly, and even budget every month.
Exactly.
Just don't forget that expense.
Don't forget it, because it's really important. So then, create a system for your clients where and hopefully they follow it, because you can create a system all day long. And if they decide not to follow it, then, there's nothing you can do. But all you can do is try to help them. It's up to them to actually accept the help. And then the last thing is, one of the things that you should pay attention to as it relates to the IRS is the fact that the cannabis industry is a cash-based business. And boy, does the IRS love to audit cash-based businesses, because the assumption is you're not recording all of your income. And they're right.
Yep.
Sorry to say, they're right. I used to work, before I started working with this particular industry, I worked with as I said, I was a hairstylist and salon owner. So I decided to niche up with that particular industry. That's also a cash-based business. So we dealt with a lot of audits. Now, I tell my cash-based business clients that if there's one thing you want to stay away from, it's a lifestyle audit. You don't want the IRS to do a lifestyle audit on you. And usually they will do that if you're a cash-based business and you're paying for all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, you have this house, you have this car, you have, you're paying these bills. And then they look at your financials and they see, well, how can you afford to pay all of this and you're only making this amount of money? Well, if they don't have a way to back their way into what you should be making, which they do, okay, depending on how severe your case is, they will say, okay, we're going to do a lifestyle audit to see how much money you are spending versus what you're making. And they go deep. They go down the rabbit hole, and you want to avoid that. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything right, that you are reporting your income. You want to make sure that, because the IRS can find out how much they think you were supposed to make just by putting the puzzles and pieces together. It may not be exact, but they have a pretty good idea. And if you're nowhere near what their assumptions are, they're just going to say, okay, well, here's what you made, because we're going to assume this. And they're going to, so you will pay tax based on their assumptions plus penalties and interest.
So yeah, Gosh, I mean, you said so much stuff. It's amazing stuff, but it is all these things are true, and they've got to focus on this for certain. And this is kind of a related question on: is there an issue, an aspect of tax compliance that you wish you knew before you jumped into cannabis? I know you've dealt with a lot already, and or did you overcome any challenges with your first clients that you wish you'd been more prepared to handle on the tax side?
I would say when I started in working with cannabis clients, I looked at a business and I said, okay, I want to start working with businesses that are in the cannabis space. And I realized as I started that I was working with businesses that are in the compliance space because there are so many compliances. Okay. It was almost like, okay, am I working, or rather, are you selling cannabis? Are you cultivating cannabis?
Yeah.
Are you producing, products, or are you just worrying about compliance issues? Because it was just, everything you do is about compliance. So I would say that one of the things that I realized was how deep it goes. So it's not just dealing with, of course, you have your federal compliance requirements, even though it's illegal on the federal level, they
Yeah.
still want their money regardless. Okay. So you have to deal with that. You have to also deal with your state compliance issues. And then I didn't realize how deep it goes down into the cities, the counties that you're in. You also have to deal with those compliance agencies. And sometimes before you can even get your state compliance license or whatever, there are certain requirements that they have of you to certain things you have to do with your city or your county before you can get to the state. So I would say that I wasn't really aware of how deep it went. Now, being that I have, was an auditor, I did work with different states, and I also worked with different of the feds in different states, but I didn't necessarily go down to the city, county level and all of that. So if I had known, and oh, by the way, I'm also one of the things I also do. I started college once again. And I'm taking a graduate certificate course in cannabis compliance. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yes. So that is opening up my eyes even more, because I am going. It's like, wow, okay. Because I figured that if I can wrap myself around the industry and just really get to understand it from a different perspective outside of what we do, and I combine the two, it would give me even deeper knowledge.
That's I
Right.
want to highlight that point. That's a really good point. What you're doing, what a great example of what I call the VIP bubble of from day one to the end of our career. I don't care if I'm 70, we're expanding our expertise, instructing and participant in a niche. And so we're translating that knowledge. That's our one asset into value to our clients, and they're paying us well for it. So yeah, you're starting with accounting and tax, but then you're branching out into compliance and HR and understanding operations and product and brand and all these other, and even the politics. You learn
Right, the
all these
politics.
things, and you're a huge value to your clients. So that's really good to hear that you're continuing on with your education. I talk to people all the time. It's like it doesn't stop. It's just
Right. It definitely doesn't stop. And it's not that I'm going to graduate and become a compliance officer, or I'm going to become, it's just, I just want that knowledge, because I want to be able to have the
yeah.
authority when I say something, or if I'm writing an article or I'm talking about something, I want to come from a place of knowledge. And it's not that I'm going to know everything, but at the very least, I will know how to go about doing my research to find out certain things about the industry.
And you can, and we've told people too, since generally the business owners don't want to do accounting or tax or HR, they generally don't like the compliance stuff as well. And you can make, I've seen people make very high fees just to maintain the license, et cetera, with the compliance side. So it's great knowledge to have. And maybe this is a great lead into this is what made you decide to join our program?
Well, let me tell you.
Get more education.
Okay, so I've been an accountant for about 10 years or so. And I found myself just working with people. It was almost like a rat race, because I was on a Ferris wheel that just kept going round and round and round and round and round. We just never stopped. So once I get done with one client, I'm jumping to the next. I had all this work to do. And then I look at my financials and I'm saying, my God, I mean, considering how hard I'm working, or how much effort mentally I'm putting into this, it just doesn't seem to be, I don't know, paying off, or I was getting, the satisfaction wasn't there. I wasn't satisfied. Something was missing. And I just didn't like the type of clientele that I had built or was attracting. So I wanted to be able to work with less clients and make more money. I wanted to also be able to use my accounting skills, for what I was doing, because the other work I was doing, I just felt like it was, okay, you do a tax return, okay, you do their books, okay, fine. You prepare financials, okay. But I just wasn't feeling challenged, okay. So that was part of it. Now, I wouldn't say that was the main reason. That's just an add-on. The main reason was I wanted to change my clientele base to a clientele base that needed my service and understood what it meant to have this particular service and to appreciate the service. Therefore, they were willing to pay the price because they understand the requirements and they actually appreciated what you were doing, rather than working with people who know they need it and they keep telling you, oh, I know I need this, I know I need this. But then they keep putting it off, or when you tell them how much, oh my God, okay, well, let me call you back, or, oh shoot, I didn't know it cost that much. I was like, okay.
And that's a great point. I mean, the mom and pops in this niche are multi-million-dollar companies. They should be paying very high fees with the complexity, with the size of the businesses and the complexity. Yeah, they should generally be paying in the hundreds of thousands. And so you can end up finding clients without, you know, having to build 10 clients or 15
Right.
clients. You can keep under 5. As a matter of fact, as I transitioned between and started giving client leads in mine into our community over, since it's been 2 years since I took a client, and even some of those I gave away to students early on. So there was a period of time where my client base was shrinking, but my revenues were still growing. Because my 1 or 2 clients were just going up. So you can literally build a 6 to 7 figure firm with 1 client. You can just grow with them because they're growing so quickly. But
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear you found it, how you like it so far. Well, actually, let me ask you that. Have you enjoyed it so far, and has it helped you build your firm? And have you found our VIP community to be a good resource as well?
It definitely has helped me build my firm. Or rather, I should say, I definitely like it. Building my firm, I'm in the process of building, I'm in the process,
Yeah.
and everything that I do goes back to me wanting to build my firm, including going back to school. Now, how I found out about this degree was one of the articles that you were in, and you posted it in the community. So I read the article, and then in the process of reading the article, I also read of this cannabis control degree at Excelsior College. And I said, oh, okay, that's really interesting. So I researched it and said, okay, you know what, this is something I think I could do. So in addition to me building my business, the community, I mean, just reading the posts, I can tell you, is so helpful. Even if you're one that doesn't like to participate, let's say, because some people are shy where they're so shy where they wouldn't even post anything. Okay, so joining the community, you don't necessarily have to post anything. It's great if you do, because we learn from everyone. But just reading the posts and reading what people put in the community is so helpful. There are a lot of things that I have learned just by reading posts. Okay, there are a lot of things I have implemented just by reading the posts. Of course, being a VIP is even more helpful, because then we have the different we have the marketing calls, which are phenomenal. You know how much money we have to pay to hire someone to even if it's just a consultation. Okay, consultations aren't free, and when someone gives you a free consultation, it might be 15 minutes, and they're going to limit what they provide you. Okay, so that alone is just amazing, where you can sit down, or you can be on a call with the marketers, and they're helping you, giving you advice. And then, of course, you have those tax calls. We all have questions about those. And even though, yes, I do taxes and I'm in that space, there are a lot of times where I might get stuck. I might get stuck. I'm thinking, okay, well, what should I do here? Because there's so many different options. Because when it comes to tax, it's a matter of interpretation sometimes, right? Where I
Yes.
can look at something and say, okay, here's what I see, and somebody else can look at it and see and say, here's what they see. Until it's tested, either by an audit or in the courts, you don't know who's right and who is wrong. If it's not tested, then you think, oh, I must have been right because,
Yeah.
after all, I wasn't audited. Doesn't mean you were right. But that said, even with the tax calls, you learn so much, okay? And you can ask questions. Now, these are the types of services that if we didn't have the community, whether it be just the regular community or the VIP community, you would have to, pay a consultant, or you'd have to scramble around, Googling, or you'd have to go onto one of your Facebook groups where you can hear just about anything, depending upon who's, answering a question. So it's very helpful because you can actually speak to the experts. You can speak to the marketing expert, ask them direct questions, not necessarily, because sometimes we get lost in the interpretation of a post. If somebody asks a question, you might answer it, but you still don't understand it. Given the ability to get on these calls, being a part of VIP, being a part of Dope CFO, and actually speak to these experts, I mean, it's like priceless. It's completely priceless. That
Well,
said, the information that I have that is given to us as part of Dope CFO, that in of itself is priceless, because it's almost like you're going back to school with all that information. I learned so much. Like, yes, I understand accounting. Yes, I understand GAAP. Yes, I understand all that stuff, but I didn't understand cannabis accounting. Not until I joined Dope CFO and was given all of that information that is just priceless. So yes.
well, thank you so much for all those kind words. And it's true that, yeah, we've got a lot of great information in the community. It's so amazing because I hadn't been in Big Four in 20 years, but our community reminds me in a way of like at Price Waterhouse. We're in all 50 states. We have just this breadth of knowledge. I'll use it for a question, or someone will be talking about a topic and I'll post, and four other people will have a discussion. And so whether it's a tax idea or a marketing idea or sharing information or new latest news articles, it's just an amazing community. And we're all serving the same community. Even people sharing work with each other, serving that same community with the same tools and knowledge. So that has been great. This has been an amazing show. I want to ask you one final question.
Mhm.
What, as well as anything you left out or that you want to share, but also what advice do you have other bookkeepers or accounting professionals who have questions about IRS compliance or just getting in the niche in general? Any final words for them?
I would say do your research and read. If you are a brand new accountant, not a brand new accountant, but if you're brand new in the space, if you're thinking about getting into the space of cannabis, I would say that do a read. Okay, you want to make sure that you read and you understand what the code sections are in the industry, because especially if you're on the tax side, because you need to know that. In addition to that, don't just jump in and say, I think I want to become I think I want to become a cannabis accountant, and then just start doing it. Don't do that, because you don't know what you're doing. I can guarantee you it's completely different. It's different from all other types of industries. So my advice would be to make sure that you hook up with a dope CFO. I'm not going to say dope CFO like business. I would say dope CFO. I would say you should more than likely consider joining Dope CFO, because the information that you're going to, and I think I've said this already, but I'll say it again, the information that you're going to receive is so paramount to you becoming an accountant in this space. So my advice is definitely to do that. Also, I would also advise anyone who is looking to become an expert in this field is to know, I wouldn't say to pick particular states, but I would say if you do decide to take a client in a state that is different from yours, or even if it's in your state, research that state. Because one thing I can say, It is so, all the states are so different. And even the folks that are in charge of the licensing for each state are so different. You have some states like California that have their actual licensing boards. You have some states that have combined it with liquor, okay, with the liquor boards and then cannabis, they just combine them together. So, they're so different. So it's important that you educate yourself. I would say that's the most important thing. Educate yourself. Educate yourself, because that is the way, that's how you're going to be able to get through the noise and understand exactly what it is that you need to do to become a cannabis specialty, or rather cannabis accountant.
Well, awesome. That I completely agree. And education is just the hallmark of our profession from day one till the last day. We're all at some point in our knowledge and just grow it daily. But I am so thankful for you coming on the show. You shared a ton of knowledge with our listeners. And we're going to give you the link as well so you can promote, and we'll put in our show notes where your do you have an easy to remember website or easy way someone driving their car can if they want to find you?
Well, I would say, well, if you go on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn is, my website address is, I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you. I think it's I'm not going to think. So
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, so what I'll do is I guess I'll text you or email you my website address. But I can be found on LinkedIn under Desarie Anderson, and it's Geo Cannabis, because I have two LinkedIn accounts. So if you type in Desarie Anderson, I'm not sure which one's going to come up, but Geo Cannabis is my LinkedIn LinkedIn account that is focused strictly on cannabis. And also I have my podcast that is called Geo Cannabis as well. I'm hoping I'm getting the name right, because honestly, I don't remember, which is terrible. I should have researched my own self before I came on to the show. I have a website that's strictly for cannabis clients or the cannabis industry, and it's called Geo Tax and Accounting Strategies.com.
Okay, geotax and accounting strategies.com. And we will put the link. Don't worry about it. We will get the link for sure. And again,
okay,
thank you so much for joining us on this. And we'll get you connected. And this has been a great show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I found you. And I found you on Instagram, weirdly enough.
That is
I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, and then I saw, your ad, and I said, oh, that's interesting. Let me click on that. And that's how I found you.
Yay.
Of all places. But